In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 $3 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls? Start saving thousands in interest and fees and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
Get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you're now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you, joined by my co-host Russ Gallo. Russ, how you doing, my brother?
What's going down, you racist white guy?
Well, yeah, that's me. Listen, speaking of race, it's that time of year. I think it's time for our annual State of the Race Relations Review here behind enemy lines. A couple of white guys talking about racism. Why not? It's appropriate. I think we should do it. Wait, let's get the drink of choice out. Well, you know, it is supposed to be National Rum Day during this week, but we're sticking with the whiskey, so...
Only you would know a fact like that, or a factoid.
I think, listen, I think our listeners are cultured enough to know what's going on. Thanks for listening to the show, everybody, at www.behindenemylinesradio.us, especially if you're in our chat room under the Listen Live button, hanging out with us, or wherever you're listening, we're glad to have you with us. So, Russ, how are the race relations these days? Because for those of you who don't know, and maybe listen to our show for the first time on any of our new outlets, Russ Gallo is our duly elected and appointed resident Minister of Race Relations here on the show.
I believe
you've been monitoring.
Was actually Master of Race Relations.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Did I misspell? Is that MASSA or is that
no?
No. Okay. Well, some people in the chat room wanted to know, not me.
The T is not silent, sir.
Okay, well, listen. Given the news this week, especially what's coming out of Milwaukee, in our lifetime, which admittedly is a couple of years, is the state of race relations better than it was, let's say, 20 years ago, or worse? In your opinion?
I think they're fantastic right now, honestly. I think that the truth is finally coming out. The left has always been racist. No matter what they try to cram down your throat at work or at school about their diversity, the way they teach diversity is perversity. Really, they stress people's differences.
They encourage division.
They encourage division, and when you encourage division and you encourage people to live in little enclaves, they basically impose segregation. self-imposed segregation. And
they make people believe that it's better to be separate.
Yeah, and when you have segregation, and then the dirty secret really is on the left. From the left is they're condescending. So for how many decades now have less been expected in this society from certain segments of our society? Out of wedlock births. Doing poorly
Brooklyn's
in school,
coming out. Those Berts.
High crime areas, you name it. But certain segments of the population, it's just looked the other way. You might have a show like The Cosby Show on TV for years. Very popular show. And a lot of the shows that have black actors in them, they try to show these ideal family settings. But that's not the truth. And everybody knows it. And when you look at a place like Milwaukee or Ferguson or any number of places over the past few years that erupted in riots, what you actually see is a breakdown of the traditional family.
And this is what Burgess Owens, who our guest on the show is going to be coming on later, talks about. It is this idea that started to happen in the 1960s, 1970s, that when Democrats started to really try to court the black vote, that government needs to take care of everybody. You need to create a dependency on government, and that particularly the black community has been, quote unquote, according to Burgess, programmed to vote a certain way, act a certain way, and in exchange, the left kind of excuses bad behavior to keep them on the hook almost.
And the facts are there; they're undeniable. I mean, if you look at the rate that blacks vote for the Democratic Party, you're looking at 80% and upwards. If you look at the rates of like the Barack Obama approval ratings and the black voter turnout for Barack Obama, now you're up into the 90 percentile. That's insanity. When you vote for someone strictly based on race, there is no other explanation for it at all. None. Then what does that show you? That's why I said that the race relations in this country are actually right where they need to be. The truth is finally coming out. Which segment of the population is more racist today? The proof is in the pudding. You have rioters in Milwaukee and in, like I mentioned, these cities before that, just roaming the streets on videotape. You could Google these videos, looking for white people to beat down. That's disgraceful. That's America in 2016 under Barack Obama and the Democratic Party.
And you can't talk about this topic without talking about BLM, without talking about the Black Lives Matter movement.
That in and of itself is just a racist term. I mean, think about it. Black Lives Matter. Well, no, duh, Black Lives Matter. Well, why do they get angry when people say, well, all lives matter?
Because that's racist to them.
That's insanity. That is insanity.
Well, let me just say this. I think reasonable people, no matter what race you are, can say that there needs to be equal justice on the streets. Can you agree with that? And by the way, what I mean by equal justice is there should be no such thing as a hate crime, because we all deserve equal justice in the law. We all deserve to have maximum enforcement of the law, and we all deserve to have people who break the law get the maximum penalty regardless of whatever your race, ethnicity, sexual orientation is. I think there should be a maximum for everybody. I think we all deserve equal protection under the law. But here's the flip side. There's an idea, and maybe it goes back to affirmative action, that you don't have to have equal responsibility under the law because you're starting out further back than someone else would be. This is where I get into arguments with people. I believe 2016, we have equal opportunity in a lot more regards than we had 10 years ago, and even more so 20 and 30 years ago. And I think by saying that I am set backwards because of history, because of prior suppression of prior generations, to me it's like saying I should get a head start because my family came from Italy 2 generations ago and we're still trying to catch up with the American dream. It just doesn't happen that way. I don't see it now. And maybe I should check my privilege.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but even put that aside for a second. So who cares if we're not starting off at the same starting line? I mean, life is unfair. I'm white, and I didn't start off the same place other white people started off. Asians are good at math. Oh, yeah, that's a racist thing to say, right? No, look it up. They're just good at math. In schools, and go to a library in New York City after school, and there's plenty of books and studies written about this. They stress family values, they stress education. Asian immigrants to this country and first-generation Asian Americans. They got so what happens with them? They're a very small minority of the population, and yet they get further than most native-born Americans. So is it just minority status that sets you back, or is it something else? It's something else. It's clearly something else. People don't expect less from Asians.
If you're using that argument to begin with, you are admitting that you are inferior for some reason that you absolve yourself from the responsibility for.
Well, you mentioned, equal protection under the law. The term hate crime is totally unconstitutional to begin with.
You know what I absolutely hate right now? I'm going to let you finish your point. You know what I absolutely hate right now? We've been doing this for about 5 years, this radio stuff, and yet when it comes to race relations, we are still hesitating in measuring our words and how we talk about this. We need to stop doing that, first and foremost.
Well, who's doing that? I never do that.
Okay.
I'm trying not to curse. So
allow me to rephrase that. I have been hesitating in trying to measure my words in talking about this issue, and I guess I'm getting to the point where I'm like, when do we stop apologizing for the wrongs of our grandparents and our great-grandparents, for those of us who were in the country? My grandparents weren't even here. When do we stop apologizing and we start looking at ourselves and saying, what can we do to better everyone? That's what I want to know. Back to your point. I'm sorry I had to get that out.
I don't know what the answer is to that question at all. But when we talk about hate crimes and equal protection under the law and all these things, you have classes of people that are deemed more important than others, which I don't really get. How often do you see when a white person is robbed, beaten, killed by a black person, which actually happens a lot more than the other way around? When is that person ever charged with a hate crime? When does it ever make the news? It's just unbelievable. Well, when it's the other way around, the automatic assumption, the default is it's a hate crime. And that's just ridiculous as well. Just touching on Milwaukee real quick. These people are out there rioting, burning down businesses, chasing white people down, beating them up, chasing reporters, beating them up, over a police shooting of a young black male who disobeyed orders from the police yet again, was actually holding a gun, pointing it at a police officer, and oh yeah, the cop was black too. They're rioting, and they're looking for white people. What does that say about the mindset of those people out there in Milwaukee?
Listen, do we really need to say it?
Racist.
Do we really need to say it? Absolutely. You know what? At this point, I think the whole country needs a reset. And unfortunately, this is our problem. We're caught in this vicious cycle. Because the people that are going to do the reset normally are the people who enforce the law, the police. And meanwhile, they're in the firestorm when it comes to race relations right now, because the default position that you've been talking about besides racism is that cops are here to kill minorities. And that's absolutely ridiculous.
And honestly, I don't think there's a way to fix it at all anymore at this point. It's probably just best to see people for who they are now. And, the people in Milwaukee are doing a very good job of showing who they really are. Because if you think about it, Gene, where do... I won't even use the term minorities. Let's stick with the African-American community, since they love to be in the news with rioting and all this nonsense. Where do they mostly live? Predominantly, do they live in urban areas, suburban areas? Where do they live?
Usually in urban communities.
Urban communities, the inner cities. Almost every big inner city across the country is run by which party?
That would be the Democratic Party.
Democratic Party, and it's been that way for decades now. Those inner cities have the most strict gun control laws anywhere. As a matter of fact, they just have lots of laws. And when you have lots of laws, you need to enforce those laws with lots of police. So they elect these people to represent them, and in majority black cities, guess what? Oddly enough, their representation is mostly black. When you look at,
Baltimore,
southern cities like Baltimore,
I mean, and
the whole city council and the mayor black. I mean, what more can be done?
Absolutely. And you know what, though, pal? Here's the thing that really gets to me. They won't pass the blame on to those leaders. That's what kills me about this whole thing.
It's still like Donald Trump's fault somehow. Like I saw Donald Trump was being blamed recently for the stuff that was going on. There was some imam shot in New York City. And actually, the night it happened, I joked around with Gene, and I said, watch Donald Trump gets the blame for this somehow. And sure enough, they're saying that Donald Trump's rhetoric and his anti-Muslim views is what caused that shooting. And that's more insanity from the left. The left is racist. When the left points out that a stereotype or something like that, they're actually pointing out their own inner racism. When they say Donald Trump is using dog whistles, guess what? If you can hear that dog whistle, you're a dog. If you can hear racist undertones, then you're racist. Donald Trump doesn't even, when he says the things he says, he's not putting it in a racial context. He talks about immigration from Muslim countries or terrorist-sponsoring nations. It has nothing to do with race. If you perceive that, you might want to look in the mirror.
Absolutely. Set the reset button on the show, by the way. We're sharing one mic at this point because we had a little bit of an echo there. Sorry about that, folks. We're going to get that fixed on the other end of the interviews we got going here. But and when it comes down to it, Russ, for me, it's this misplaced anger towards police, this misplaced anger towards conservatives, who are the party that actually started this whole conversation with Abraham Lincoln and continued it and allowed a black entrepreneurial spirit to come across in the 30s and the 40s and even into the 50s. It's eroded. And to get it back at this point is going to take some serious people. And right now, the people that allowed us are the race baiters, the people who are racist themselves, the Al Sharptons of the world that we like to joke about on the show. But not for nothing, I don't know if we can get to a point where we can get it back, is my point.
Look, there's no coming back, honestly. When you think about it, young black males in particular, they live in the inner cities. If they're raised by a single parent, that's all they got most of the time. And by the way, I'm singling them out because there's riots constantly from that community. But white out of wedlock birth rates are high as well, and higher than they used to be. However, the black community blows everybody else out of the water when it comes to these topics. Their incarceration rate blows everybody else out of the water. So they're in inner cities, single-parent households if they're lucky. Very rarely is the father in their lives. They go to schools that are failing, and then what do you expect? High incarceration rates, idiocy in the streets, lunacy.
We haven't talked about not the unwitting accomplice, but people who are complicit in this. That's the media. As we see in our chat room here at www.behindthemelionsradio.us, we're getting reports from people in the chat room saying that white reporters are pulling out of Milwaukee because it's gotten too violent for them there. How much has the media stimulated all this anger and churned up all this hostility in these communities, Russ? I mean, we see on CNN this week a mischaracterization of a quote from, I believe it was the sister of the young man you were talking about, saying, don't loot in our communities, go to the suburbs and loot there, and they mischaracterize it as a call for calm within the community to stop rioting. Come on. You gotta think the media here is, at fault, probably more so than the politicians these days.
But I actually agree with her. Listen, people in Milwaukee, don't burn your own neighborhoods down. Go to Tom Brokaw's neighborhood, go to Anderson Cooper's neighborhood, burn those neighborhoods down. Them specifically, maybe even. They're with you in the struggle. They are hashtag Black Lives Matter. They're with you. Go get them. Get them. Make them feel your pain.
Alrighty then. So here's what we're going to do right now. We got some interviews to play. I'm going to try to figure out the microphone situation here in studio, the makeshift studio, as we're transitioning between many different places here behind Enemy Lines. And when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion. But first, I want you to hear from Burgess Owens, former Super Bowl champion with the Oakland Raiders, former New York Jet. We're not going to hold that against him, though. And he's going to talk about his new book. You'll hear all about his positions on this. And then also, we want to give our listeners a glimpse into the corruption and the tyranny that is the People's Republic of New York City when we talk to Micah Morrison from Judicial Watch and his latest story talking about the new Tammany Hall. Gene and Russ behind Enemy Lines. Take a listen to our interview here with Burgess Owens, and we'll be back after all these interviews to wrap things up a little bit, put a nice bow on it, and maybe offend more people. So here we go. Is he a great athlete in his day, Super Bowl champion, but also an author, a speaker, an activist? Burgess Owens, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Gene. And of all the things that I can be called, please call me a very, very, very proud American. I love this country, and I love the opportunity it gives all of us to move forward.
I like what I'm hearing so far. That's fantastic. I'm going to put that in there. So, Burgess, listen, I see that you got a new book out. I love the title, by the way. It's maybe one of the best titles to a book I've ever heard. Liberalism, or How to Turn Good Men into Whiners, Weenies, and Wimps. Fantastic. How did you come up with the this is not your first book, right?
Yeah, this I had another book out of a while back, but this is the one that really, I think, kind of had a chance to bring all together my thoughts for decades. Gene, I grew up during a very, very special time, segregated South, down in Tallahassee, Florida, and I had a chance to see around me so many great men and women, communities that were successful moving forward. When we all left there was no doubt in anybody's mind that we could succeed no matter who we went against. Those are true men. And so over the years, I've seen a difference. I've seen men that all of a sudden don't respect women. They don't have a vision. They don't want to protect anyone. It's all about them. And so it comes down to, if I was back in my day with my dad, my granddad, that's what they would call the men today. A lot of the black men today, whiners, weenies, and wimps, not visionary, and we're where we are within our black community because we're letting a bad ideology direct and drive our future. We need to change that.
Okay, now when you talk about bad ideology, I assume we're talking about liberalism, which we say on the show all the time. There's got to be something wrong in your head, in your brain chemistry, if you think that giving everything up to government is the way to go. Do you feel that government has created a dependency culture within not even just black communities, but inner city communities?
Yeah, it's a philosophy. And if I can say it this way, we don't have today a racial crisis. We really don't, even though it appears that way. What we have at the very deep center of our country is an ideology crisis. We're up against socialism, Marxism, atheism, and we have to decide whether we're going to go that route that they're pushing us for decades now, or we get back to our Judeo-Christian values of capitalists, entrepreneurs, empathy, love for each other. That's what the American dream has always been about, and we've been so successful back during my growing up days. And these liberals have done a good job of stealth and getting into our communities. If I can just say this one quick, Dream, because I think people need to understand the perspective I have growing up when I did. A lot of people don't realize that from 1865 to 1965, the black community is one of the most productive, successful, competitive, Christian-based races in our nation. We were a force to be dealt with. We are over 50% of, this is in the 60s, 50% of blacks throughout our country were part of the middle class. We had the highest percentage of entrepreneurs in the country, which is why the middle class was so strong. We had the highest percentage of men committed to marriage and their children than any other race in our country. We were so competitive in terms of black entrepreneurs that in 1932, the Democrats had to put together something called the Davis-Bacon Act to protect the all-white unions against black entrepreneurs. That is still in the books today, still protected by the same cowards, the Democrats, that now has our entrepreneurs down to less than 2% in our country. So if you really understand where this all begins, it's by stealth, and it's on purpose, and it's all about policies.
And as you write in your book, you talk about how the social welfare programs of the 60s, the Great Society, and et cetera, that really turned the tables for especially your community, because the incentive to stay single, to not go after a job, it took all of that motivation and all that innovation, it took the wind out of everybody's sails, right?
It actually did, and it's all been about black policies. Let me just say that I'm going to talk about the black policies that led us to where we are today. But more importantly, I want everybody to understand the stealth, the real deal with Democratic Party, the stealth and evil intents of the Democratic Party. I'll explain that in a second. But anti-black policy, the Davis-Bacon Act, the anti-school choice, which keeps kids dumb and ignorant and illiterate, which is going on in all these liberal cities around our country. The minimum wage, which does not allow black kids to have an opportunity to have a job. 83% of young black males out of work should be a big deal now. And of course, welfare by Democrats was what decimated our family unit. But here's the deal. Back in 1910, the NAACP was formed. It was not formed by black men and women. It was formed by 21, and I list them all in my book, 21 wealthy, white, socialist, Marxist, atheist, race-controlled Democrats. the antithesis, by the way, of the black community at that time, which were the Martin Luther King Sr. Christians, capitalists, entrepreneurs, very patriotic. So they do stealth in the blackface of W.E. Du Bois, which they do. They love hiding behind the curtains. They put in the liberalism, the integration, the abortion, all those messages that I've talked about in my book. Today, it is BET, Black Entertainment Television. It has not been black-owned for 15 years. It's owned by wealthy, white, liberal Democrats, the Firestones and Viacom. And they've been for 15 years fire-hosing my community with anti-white, anti-police, anti-woman, anti-family, anti-Christian, anti-American. Anything that is failure-based is pushed into my community. And you wonder why they have so many hopeless people who, when they stub their toe, they blame white people or rich people because they have no idea about the American dream and the opportunities that are out there for them. So we need to pull back the curtains on these bullies and cowards, these racist white liberals that own BET, and allow the message that now we see on the streets. Have Phil Dorman, Sherry Redstone, the board of directors of Viacom, speak to us about BET and why the message they put in there is now led to the streets of Black Lives Matter and assassination of these policemen. They need to come to answer to us, and we can deal with them with a free enterprise niche that we can always work with when we find out who the cowards really are.
You know, I'm glad that you mentioned Black Lives Matter, because it's always been my position that if you are a reasonable person, then of course you want to get to the bottom of every perceived wrong in our nation. If someone's sitting in the car, I don't care what color they are, and they're ended up being shot by the police, I want to know what happened there. I don't care who they are. If someone's tussling with a police officer and they're shot while they're laying on the ground, of course I want to know what happened, and I want to know what went wrong and how we can improve it. We can always improve everything. We can always reform everything. Why is Black Lives Matter not taking this message to everyone? Because I think it's one that can resonate. It's not just one segment of the community that benefits by police reform, for instance. It's not just one segment of the community that benefits by jobs reforms and economic programs. Why is it only being targeted for one specific group? Is it because there is a political agenda behind it?
Oh, no question. Keep in mind, guys, we're up against an election time. And I understand who benefits when this goes on. I understand who's benefited by the misery of blacks across our country. It's always been Democrats. We have 90% of blacks voting for Democrats because of the message of misery. But here's why you only find it where you are. It is BET, Black Entertainment News. You go to that website, all you do is see anti-police information. If there's a police problem out there, and instead of talking about education, pull up your pants, comb your hair, learn how to talk and learn how to commit to your family, there's nothing about the positive messaging that BET allows us to have. And I tell you what really bothers me, go back and you see Martin Luther King demonstrations, and see even when they put in jail, they have white shirts and their ties. Why, in the middle of summer, they dress that way? Because not only are they fighting racist laws, but they're fighting racist stereotypes. The stereotypes of slouchy, inarticulate, not educated, but love to sing and dance. Well, go to BET. You find slouchy, inarticulate, can't not speak two sentences without a curse word, but they love to sing and dance. That stereotype by the white Democrats that have been pushing into my community is now what is being emulated by all these kids out there, and they are totally hopeless because they know there's no income they can generate out there other than getting it from somebody else. It's socialism. It's Marxism. And that's what Democrats do best. And they do it by stealth. And again, I want to say this over again. They're cowards, and they're bullies, and they're racist. And we as a country need to pull back the curtains and have them stand before us and explain to us, Viacom, why are you putting this information? We know why. Explain to us why this is happening, though. And I think at that point, once the accountability, our police will be a little bit more protected because there'll be some accountability on the side of these cowards.
All right, so listen, let's turn a little positive now. I think we've identified a lot of the problem. I want to start turning a little positive because I saw an article that you quoted in Breitbart recently, actually applauding Ben Watson, who is a player for the Baltimore Ravens, one of your brothers from the NFL, that you blazed the path for, really. And he was out there saying some truth, talking about how Planned Parenthood was really about, I don't want to say, terminating a community or a race, but it was targeted towards the black community. and he learned that lesson from history, and he spoke up about it. And you stepped right up and stood right next to him and saying, "Good on you for speaking some truth to power right there." Is there hope that some people are starting to wake up within? I know in my community, I'm hoping it's going to happen because, to be perfectly honest, in the white community, there is an incentive to remain number one. You know what I mean? Not to help, and that's where these liberal Democrats kind of shoot from. They want to lose their position. But do you have some hope that there's going to be some sort of change coming within the community?
I do, and I appreciate you having the chance to give me to leave you guys with some hope. Because here's a couple of things we need to do. First thing, white Americans, stop apologizing. You have absolutely nothing to apologize for. We have a great ancestry that has allowed, through their faults and the best efforts, to give us the freest country in the history of mankind. Be proud of that. And as black Americans, I tell you, I take it as an offense to apologize to me, because my parents, my grandparents did everything they could to gain the respect, and they earned the respect by succeeding. And that's what I talk about in my book. So let's not apologize. Be proud of who we are, and let's not take the messaging of these socialists and do so. The other thing is this. There's 28% of black Americans out there that feel the same way I do. They love their country, our race, our kids, and our future, and we need to become political free agents. Political free agent says this: we're not going to vote 90% groupthink anymore. If we're capitalists, guys, we don't vote for socialists. Let's look at values. Let's look at principles. If you're Christians, the last thing a Christian does is vote for an atheist. If you believe in education for our kids, or even our poor kids, we don't vote for the Obamas and the Hillary Clintons, who have made it a point of keeping our kids dumb and enslaved in these bad schools so they can get on the streets like this before the election so they can win their votes. And if we believe that God, the life, the sanctity of life, then we need to not vote for people that believe our kids are profitable weeds. So if we do that, I personally believe that that same small minority of blacks in our country can not only pull our community back from the abyss, but they can pull their entire nation back from the abyss. And I think we can do that by just communicating, getting back to basics, become a political free agent, and let's look at the blessings we have of being Americans versus those that are trying to convince us that we should not be proud of who we are.
That's a message that I say on every show. Just open your mind to the ideas of what you want your government to be like, not necessarily the people of, voting for the jersey, to coin a phrase. Yeah. You don't just vote for the laundry and go down the line. Think about what you want to do. Listen, folks, pick up Liberalism, or How to Turn Good Men into Whiners, Weenies, and Wimps. It's available now, right, Burgess?
It's available now, Barnes & Nobles and Amazon, and please join me on my Facebook page. For years, my goal is to set up a place where we can respectfully talk and discuss issues and educate ourselves. Education, guys, education is how we beat socialists. Let's do that, and together we'll pull this thing back and get our pride back and our vision back and make sure that all Americans are succeeding and excited about being part of this great nation.
Fantastic. Find Burgess Owens on Facebook. Check out the book. And finally, if I may, because I am talking to a Super Bowl champion. If you could help out with my fantasy team, I finished in 4th last year, and I'm looking to improve. So any tips you may have, I would greatly appreciate.
Well, I tell you, look to me for improvement. We got a real problem. Gene, I tell you, when they stopped paying me back in 1983, I stopped paying attention. So that's how long it's been. I am the worst guy to try to find out what the latest. You let me know when to have the next draft where things are going. I can probably take hints from you at this point.
Wow. Okay, that. Now we're in trouble, because if you're looking for tips from me, we're in trouble. Burgess Owens, thank you so much. This has been so much fun, man. I appreciate this so much. And listen, my pledge to you, we're going to continue the conversation past this and beyond the election cycles, because that's the way we solve problems in America. Thank you so much for your candor.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And together we'll do this. You give us a platform. Together we'll get this message out, and it's all about team, guys. Let's just win, baby. Let's get this thing done with.
Just win, baby. Thanks so much.
If you want to rob a bank or run a red light, then there's something you should do first that'll make it all right. You can break any law without any oversight if you change your last name to Clinton. You can lie to the feds or just act like a jerk. Make a crap ton of money without doing any work. Plus, you can sleep with your staff as an added perk if you change your last name to Clinton. The SEC, the FBI, the House of Representatives, they just don't apply. You can have all of your enemies mysteriously die if you change your last name to Clinton. Sell special favors to the communist Chinese. Charge $100 million for some speaking fees. Tell that sexy intern to get down on her knees. You can do it if your last name is Clinton. Collect lots of cash through your private foundation. Store top secret info in an unsecure location. And somehow secure the Democratic nomination. You can do it if your last name is Clinton. Nothing to it if your last name is Clinton. Oh, it's against the law? Screw it. Your last name is Clinton.
Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air.
It's a pleasure to welcome to the show the Chief Investigative Reporter for Judicial Watch, my new friend, Micah Morrison. Micah, how you doing, sir?
Good, Gene. Good to be with you.
So, before we started recording here, we started talking about this. To me, it's a groundbreaking article that you've written recently for Judicial Watch. It came out last week, calling New York and this new age of corruption the new Tammany Hall. Why don't you tell everybody why you chose that title?
Well, and Gene, it's great to be on with you and your listeners. This is such a terrific show. The reason we chose that title is because we're trying to point out that it's not just isolated incidents of corruption in the de Blasio administration, and even connected to more powerful Democrats such as Mrs. Clinton. There's a real pattern here. There's a roadmap, and the pattern resembles the old Tammany Hall, and I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with Tammany Hall and the phrase Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall was the corrupt Democratic Party machine that dominated New York City politics for over a century and extended into every corner of New York civic life. Bribes, kickbacks, fraud, extortion, graft. Today, we're witnessing what we believe is the birth of a new Tammany Hall. And that's similar in many ways, but also different. And I think one of the things we point out that is different is that these days there are more effective laws. We have to, sort of acknowledge that and be thankful for that. There's more effective laws against outright bribery, extortion, and graft, but there's also people, as always, as is human nature, finding their way around the laws. And much of this revolves around what in the old Tammany Hall, a figure from the old Tammany Hall, a very famous figure called George Washington Plunkett, a corrupt Tammany Hall operative from the late 1800s into the early 1900s. George Washington Plunkett famously said, "I seen my opportunities and I took them." And what we are saying now is that there's a new Tammany Hall which is seeing its opportunities and taking them on a colossal scale. Now, Plunkett also identified what he called honest graft. Today we would look at it as a crime. It wasn't a crime then, but today we would look on that as a crime. And basically what Plunkett was saying is that we are gaming the system for ourselves and our friends. We are gaming the system for the benefit of the powerful and the well-connected, and then we throw a few crumbs to the common folk. At Judicial Watch, and in this article, we believe that's what's happening today. There's a new Tammany system evolving. And we believe in Brooklyn, there's a great case study for how that system evolved, and that's the Atlantic Yards Project, a Barclays Center, now called Pacific Park, but everybody really looks at it as Atlantic Yards. And very briefly, Gene, and I'll let you get to your questions, very briefly, Atlantic Yards offers what we call a case study of how the new Tammany system has evolved. And it involves a number of different elements. We call it a roadmap. Very briefly, those elements are manipulation of state funds, your taxpayer dollars, in other words, the so-called agents of the city controversy that Mayor de Blasio was involved in, the so-called three-men-in-a-room corruption schemata up in Albany, where 3 men in a room, the governor, the two assembly leaders, the assembly leader and the Senate majority leader, run the show. Eminent domain, which as many of your listeners know, that's how Atlantic Yards receives. Sales, overseas connections, so the people who owned Atlantic Yards bought it with taxpayer dollars, flipped it, as we say, show in this article, they flipped it and they sold it to a Russian mogul and the Chinese. And then the manipulation of what's called EB-5 visas, where people can basically buy a green card and get into the country, and the money flows to the Atlantic Yards developers. So in short, that's the system, and we lay it out in the article.
Yeah, it's almost mind-boggling to see the connections from one to the other. And they may not necessarily be acting in concert with each other. You know, the people in New York City may not necessarily be, you know, you may not see the connection to the three men in the room, as we like to call it, in the People's Republic of New York, that seem to decide everything over the state budget. But when you put it all together, it becomes so overwhelming. I mean, where do we start with all this? Do we start with the incompetence of Bill de Blasio and how he has let his agents take over running the city? Is that where we should start there?
Yeah, you know, I think that is a good place just to start with the incompetence of Bill de Blasio, because, you know, as we say in this article, you know, the old Tammany Hall was really run by criminals. I mean, they were powerful. It was a powerful political machine, and it did get things done for the people of New York, but they took a vast profit, which was not entitled, which they were not entitled to, that belonged to the people of New York. In the new Tammany system, when you look at Bill de Blasio, what we say in the article, you know, he's no criminal genius. He has more emerged as more of a pawn than a prince of the city, that he's insecure, he's in over his head, he's buffeted by money players he can't seem to resist, and he's presiding over and accelerating pay-to-play scandals that have cast a pall of political death over his administration. So de Blasio is basically, he's a player in this, but he is not like some central evil genius. And really, in fairness, we don't think there is any central evil genius. It's a bunch of people manipulating the system. The margins are probably, well, we know there are crimes being committed because U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara is arresting people left and right. And, Gene, I should add, you know, the Republicans are involved in this as well. We'll get to the Republicans in another article by Judicial Watch, but New York City is a Democratic city. It's run by Democrats. They dominate 6-1 in the voting ranks. And so when you talk about corruption in New York City, you have to start with the Democratic Party. And when you do start with the Democratic Party, you look at the money people, you look at the developers. My thesis is a lot of this is tied up with the real estate industry, which is tremendously powerful in New York City and New York State. And we focus on a guy named Bruce Ratner, who many of your listeners will be familiar with. He is the central figure in the battle over Atlantic Yards. He's the central developer. He is a master of honest graft. He's not been charged in any crimes. He's repeatedly courted controversy with unfulfilled promises of public benefits, multi-million-dollar paydays, and links to crooked politicians and their enablers. So you have a guy like Bruce Ratner, and he's an important supporter of not only Bill de Blasio, but Hillary Clinton. So you take a look at Bruce Ratner. Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign headquarters is in a Ratner building in Brooklyn. Ratner and de Blasio lobbied hard to bring the Democratic National Convention to the Barclays Center. Didn't happen. De Blasio was an important early supporter of Ratner's Atlantic Yards bid, and Atlantic Yards bid. And Ratner was a longtime donor to the Democrats. He was involved in the 1996 Bill Clinton campaign finance scandal. He was a guest in the Lincoln bedroom. He attended the White House coffee event, and a link between Bill de Blasio and Bruce Ratner is Harold Ickes. I should say the link between Bill de Blasio and the Clintons is Harold Ickes, who's a lobbyist, a powerful, longtime Clinton advisor, who was identified by federal prosecutors as, quote, the Svengali, close quote, behind the campaign finance scandal. That is the 1996 campaign finance scandal. So you look at a guy like Ratner. He comes into Brooklyn 10 years ago, 12 years ago, saying, I am going to develop Atlantic Yards. I'm going to bring thousands of good jobs and thousands of affordable housing units to Brooklyn. There's a huge fight, as you know, over that. Ratner courts the politician, gets hundreds of millions of dollars in state and city aid, which we document in the story, and there's no secret, and then gets Albany to seize the land through what we call eminent domain of state and federal seizure procedure, which allows him to develop it. Now, he made certain promises, again, jobs, housing, and they have not materialized. Now, his people will say they're going to materialize, but meanwhile, Ratner, as he sees more and more control of this project, as he's bought deeper and deeper into it, then he turns around and sells major portions of it to a Russian mogul, a guy named Mikhail Prokhorov, who owns the Barclays Center now, and to a Chinese company controlled by the Chinese government, which is a bunch of communists. So in other words, if you simplify this a little, Ratner comes in, he gets state aid, state and city aid to buy this project, and then he turns around and sells it to the Chinese and the Russians.
And in doing so, passes along all the tax breaks that Forest City Ratner enjoyed in developing the area. And now we're looking at quote-unquote affordable units of housing, and only in New York you say this, affordable units of housing between $2,500 and $3,500 a month.
Exactly.
It's diabolical in its brilliance, and during the comparison to Tammany Hall, there is no central planning like from the top down or anything like that. This is all put together by go-betweens and intermediaries, and there really is no organization to the madness. It's, as you said, you see the opportunity and you pounce on it. It really is diabolical in the sense that everything that we just talked about, perfectly legal.
Right. It's completely legal. Again, Mr. Ratner's been charged with no crimes. It does actually touch on what we call what the media has called the agents of the city controversy, where Bill de Blasio has 5 or 6 consultants around him, and New York One, I believe, filed a Freedom of Information law request seeking the correspondence of these guys and wanted to see what these consultants, who are reaping millions of dollars in business from people who want to do business with the city and are doing business with the city, what they're telling the mayor and what the mayor is telling him. And the mayor offered an unusual defense, saying, well, these guys are agents of the city. Even though he's not paying them, not on the payroll, he said, on the mayoral payroll, he said, these are agents of the city. I'm not disclosing them. I'm not disclosing this. Now, Judicial Watch has filed its own request. We'll fight it in court if necessary. I understand other media organizations are going to fight this in court. And one of the figures that we focus on in this article is a guy named Jonathan Rosen, who runs a firm named Berlin Rosen. He's a consultant. He's a PR guy. He's a lobbyist, and he also happens to be a lobbyist and a consultant, a strategist for Bruce Ratner. So you wonder what is he telling the mayor? How are they sort of gaming the system between them? Now, according to published reports, Rosen is under investigation by U.S. Attorney Barara and Manhattan DA Cy Vance in connection with Mayor de Blasio's fundraising and the mayor's nonprofit organization, Campaign for One New York, which was paid about Rosen's firm was paid about $700,000 by de Blasio entities, and that's another part that we didn't touch on at the top of the program. A lot of these folks now, to get into the corruption game, are creating nonprofit foundations, and then the money will flow to the nonprofit rather than flow directly to, say, a political figure, which would be illegal. And again, if you go through the newspaper, if you look at the cases that Preet Bharara has brought and Cy Vance has brought, there are many corruption cases which have a nonprofit entity kind of, at the center of the scam.
Well, listen, we've only scratched the surface of this article, and we're going to direct all of our listeners to go to the investigative bulletin at judicialwatch.com to read up on this whole thing. Folks, We're talking about billions of dollars, billions with a B, that of money that's been floating around here. And like I said, this interview with Mike is just scratching the surface. Micah, tell people, where they can find you on social media. Obviously, the Investigative Bulletin, I'm adding it to my daily blog roll because I'm checking it out every day now just to see what happens here. But tell everybody how they can find out more about you and all the stuff that you're doing at Judicial Watch.
Gene, thank you so much. And we have an active tips line at Judicial Watch. It's www.judicialwatch.org. You can click there on Investigative Bulletin, and you'll see me, and there's a tips line there. I'm on Twitter at Micah Morrison. It's MICAH, Micah, MICAH_Morrison, MORRISON. And I'll also have a personal website at micahmorrison.com. You can contact me through any of those vehicles, and I would be happy to speak with folks. And again, I thank you so much for being on. This is a real New York story, a real story that's going to continue for a long time. And we need to stand up and get it fixed. And only if we all work together will that happen.
Well, this is a real New York story that we're going to continue to follow, and we're going to definitely have you on the show as events develop with this story. Micah, thanks so much, man. This was great, and we'll talk to you as you get more information, especially when you get that FOIL request done.
Terrific, Gina. Thank you so much.
All right, that was two great interviews we did. One with Burgess Owens, former New York Jet. Now, wow, bringing the fire when it comes to the issues of race in America. And our new friend Micah Morrison, check him out at micahmorrison.com. Check him out at Judicial Watch as well. Talking about corruption here in the People's Republic of New York City. Just wanted to give you guys a glimpse of what we're up against here. The reason why the show's called Behind Enemy Lines, folks, is because Russ and I are outnumbered here in New York City. What is it now, 8-1, something like that? I mean, if you don't count the rhinos, something like that, right? But this is what we're up against as far as the corruption and the overt, I'm going to say it again, and everybody's going to have to drink, diabolical nature of the Democratic Party here in New York City.
You pulled diabolical out of the woodshed,
I had to. Listen, you know what? Every now and then, I have to bring out the polysyllabic words. I mean,
don't you hate when you bust out a good word like that and then you use it 2 or 3 times in a row and you're like, damn, I shouldn't use that many times.
I know, it's diabolical when it happens. Listen, folks, I gotta get the plugs in real quick. Thanks for listening to Behind Enemy Lines Radio. I'm Gene, he is Russ, and while we got you listening, check us out at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And while you're listening to this show live on Spreaker Tuesdays at 10 p.m., if you miss any part of it, check out our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM in Jasper, Florida, WDDQ 92.1 in Adel, Georgia. Both are part of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network. You can catch us on there as well. You can also catch us on KLRN Radio, formerly K98 Talk. Also on High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, the Internet's Conservative Radio Network, ICRN, and our brand new internet outlet, Lanterns Radio Network, run by our great friends who used to work with at War Russ. You may remember them. But you know what? There's even more ways to listen. Because if you miss us at any one of those rebroadcast outlets, you can check us out on demand anytime at Spreaker, iTunes, Player FM, Podbay, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM. You can discover us on Google Play Podcasts. You can also listen to us on SoundCloud and iHeartRadio. There you go.
And almost every Friday night, you can catch me at Joe's Bar. I'll be in the back.
Come on. Absolutely right. But anyway, although not for long, we have to say. We might be saying goodbye to Joe's in a little while. Anyways, I want to get back to where we were before we played the interview with Burgess. First of all, what do you think of Burgess Owens, Russ?
Oh, that's my main man. I especially like what he said. Did he say he stopped caring about professional football in 1983?
Yeah, he said that's a Russ Gallo comment. After they stopped paying him, he stopped caring.
That's my man.
It's a great comment. I agree. But what do you think about how he was blunt, man? I mean, he was just
he basically
stop
said
apologizing. Well, let's not go that far.
I don't know if he was listening to the show before your interview. Maybe he stole some of my stuff.
He might have. But I love how he was saying that there are some in the community, in his own community, that are waking up. I mean, and we've seen it the past couple of years. Right? You've seen the Herman Cains of the world and the Alan Wests.
They're not really black, though.
Oh, stop. Of course they are.
No, I thought that if they weren't liberal Democrats, then they're not really black. That's what the black people on TV always say. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Or I don't know. I listened to them. I thought that they were so much smarter than us, and when they tell us things like that,
the media is always smarter than us, right, Russ?
Believe it.
Yeah, we're just supposed to believe them.
We're supposed to believe Bill Cosby was a great guy and Michael Jackson was also a great guy. We're supposed to believe that.
We're supposed to believe that apparently only Black Lives Matter and not everybody else's.
We're supposed to believe that a guy like Mike Tyson deserves a second and third and fifth and seventh chance. We're supposed to believe that. We're supposed to believe that the Reverend Jesse Jackson is actually a reverend. We're supposed to believe that the Reverend Al Sharpton is actually a reverend and a man of God. That's what we're supposed to believe, right?
You took all my talking points. What the hell, man? Weren't we supposed to go back and forth on that? You took 3 of them. What the hell?
We're supposed to believe a guy like Steve Harvey has...
Gene's life matters. Come on.
You're supposed to believe a guy like Steve Harvey has any talent whatsoever. The guy's not even funny. Disastrous host on what is it, Miss Universe, Miss America? I'm supposed to believe all that, right? I'm supposed to believe black entertainment television is not racist, right?
Yeah, he really laced into BET, didn't he? Yes, talking about how it's not really owned by any black entrepreneurs. It's owned by Viacom, and their job, according to Burgess, is to keep the stereotype perpetuated of, curse words and dancing and music. Which, if we were to say that, we'd probably get yanked off air. But I'm glad that Burgess said it for us, because, listen, I think that's on the minds of a lot of people, that there is a priority problem in these communities. They're not willing to look within, to assess blame within for the problems that happen within those communities. They'd rather focus on what's without. They don't want to focus on the 80% of crime, and this is not a real statistic, I'm just spitballing here, the 80% of black-on-black crime versus the 20% of white-on-black crime, or vice versa. They're not willing to focus on, heal thyself, if you want to take a religious spin on it.
Well, the problem is the mere fact that we refer to them as a community, which is what they refer to themselves as. I've said this for years now. The black community, that right there, in and of itself, is crippling you. Many shows I do this. Listen up, black people. If you listen to the show, please listen to me. Who cares about the community? Worry about you and your family. That's your community. You don't see white people running around saying the white community. I don't give a damn what some white guy's doing 3 blocks from me. I don't care. You know what I mean? He has to worry about his family. I got to worry about mine. And when you start looking at life through that lens, you're going to be all right. These communities that we speak of, it's only minority groups use these terms. The gay community, the black community, the Latino community. It's ridiculous.
It's also divisive, because when you start focusing on the needs of that community, that's how you get hate crime legislation. That's how you get the separation and division from politicians servicing those communities. When are we going to start looking at each other as human beings and not as a label that a politician has given us? And let's not make any mistake about it. It's the politicians and the media moguls that benefit from this division. It's not you and me benefiting from it, Russ, for sure. It's not any of our minority friends that are benefiting from it, that's for sure. It's the same people that they say are oppressing them. That quote-unquote 1%, that political class, that economic class that's on top in that silver palace, right? Those are the ones that are benefiting from everybody else squabbling amongst each other. When you gotta wake up, folks, it's everybody's battle what happens in this election. It's everybody's battle what happens with this country in years to come. It's everybody's battle to keep us safe. It's everybody's battle to make sure that our rights are protected. This is the great thing about libertarianism in the Republican Party and in the conservative movement. You don't see color. You see rights. And when you're dealing with rights, everybody benefits from those rights equally. And God forbid we actually say something that happens equally, because, liberals want to make sure that we all have equal outcomes. It's the equal opportunity that our rights are granted to us from our Creator. Not to get up on a pulpit here, but that's how it's supposed to work. Not this division of some are more equal than others.
Gene said to wake up. Listen, do me a favor, stay asleep. I prefer everybody to stay asleep. You know what I mean? I'm a white male, Christian, heterosexual. I got a job. I'm living comfortably. I worry about me and my family. Stay asleep. You know what I mean? Worry about what the rappers are doing and the basketball players and the professional athletes. You worry about those people. I'll worry about me and my family and putting food on my table and working. Stay asleep. Do me a favor, stay asleep.
All right, time for some quick final thoughts. I'm going to let Russ go first. You want to go first? We'll flip a coin. What do you want to do? Go ahead. You go first.
First of all, rest in peace, John McLaughlin. I was no big fan, but I remember as a kid, he was like 90 years old when I was a kid, so he's got to be pushing 100-something. He just died today. The McLaughlin Group was one of the first political shows I ever watched and got me interested in politics, even though he was a left-wing maniac. And moving on from one old crusty left-wing maniac to another, Hillary Clinton. When will the media look at her medical files? She's limping, falling downstairs, having brain, what'd she say, short circuits. The woman is not fit to be president, and the media needs to look at this. When Dick Cheney had heart issues, they brought it up constantly, saying that he shouldn't be a heartbeat away from the president if he has a bad heart. Stop the double standard. Look into Hillary's health.
All right, real quick, my final thought is I loved Burgess Owens' comment of being a political free agent. Yes, finally. Someone else saying it besides me and Russ, saying, look to the issues that matter to you. Don't necessarily go by party label. That's great for identifying, macro issues. But when it comes down to it, be a political free agent, think for yourself, and you know what? Maybe you'll get through this election cycle a lot better than you normally would have if you just voted down the laundry line. And I hope everybody takes that to heart. Be a political free agent. You heard it here behind enemy lines.
Stay asleep.
Hey, no, wake up.
Go ahead, Milwaukee.
Wake up.
Go riot. Burn down your neighborhood. Stay asleep.
Wake up. Listen.
Vote Democrat. Vote Democrat.
It's time to shut this sucker down. What do you say, Russ?
Vote Democrat, you jerks.
I think that was some sheep. Whatever. We're going to shut this sucker down. Thanks for listening to this show. From me and Russ here in the People's Republic of New York City, we are out of here. Good night, folks.
Our position's been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.behindenemylinesradio.us and look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. You are the resistance. Behind Enemy Lines. A Rock Radio production. Copyright 2016. Back in 7 days. Out.